Today, I want to address the topic of hunger versus cravings. First, hunger is a physiological response to when our body needs food and needs to be nourished. So, hunger actually starts in our body and communicates with our brain that it needs to be fed. The difference with a craving is that it starts in our mind and now is transmitted to our body. So, two very different things. Hunger can be solved by eating something that is healthy and balanced, like some chicken or a lean piece of protein and some vegetables or broccoli, where a craving is very particular for a very specific food, and your mind convinces you that is the only thing that is going to solve this apparent hunger. So, first, let's talk about the physiological aspects of hunger. There are hormones that signal to our body when we are satiated, when we are full, and also when we are hungry. So, those two hormones are ghrelin and leptin. They are opposite of each other, indicating our fullness and our level of hunger. The first thing to note is that we are so conditioned as humans to be comfortable and to avoid discomfort or things that aren't pleasurable. So when we're constantly feeding ourselves, we don't have the sensation of ever being hungry. And I'm going to just warn you that being hungry does not mean you're going to die. It may be an uncomfortable feeling. There may be a sensation of, oh, there's things fluttering in my stomach, or it's time to eat, but you will not die. Hunger, if particularly if you are embarking on a weight loss journey, is a very good sign that your body is now using its own fat stores for fuel. So it may not be comfortable, but it is not harmful to be hungry. So I'm going to encourage you to get used to this sensation of being hungry. It's okay. There's a very different physiological response that happens when your blood sugar spikes and then consequently crashes after, because insulin has come around and swept all of the glucose out of your blood and shunted it to your fat storage cells. So that can be some dysregulation of blood sugar and of insulin. So that's a very different sensation. So if you are eating balanced meals that contain a lean protein, some vegetables, and a good quality fat in balanced proportions, that amount of food, you want to ensure that you're eating an adequate amount of all of those macronutrients to carry you on for at least or around 5 hours. There is no need to be snacking every 2 hours. If you have this undesirable urge to eat or this hunger, one of two things may be happening. You didn't eat enough food in your last meal, or your last meal was very imbalanced, that it had a high amount of carbohydrates or simple carbohydrates, and your glucose levels went up and then consequently crashed after insulin did its job. So now the body is searching for more glucose for energy because it's crashed and has no glucose remaining in the blood. So very different than when you are eating balanced meals. So those two things I would have you check first, making sure that your meals are balanced with macronutrients and that you had adequate amount of all of the macronutrients and you weren't just carb heavy. Now, the craving in itself is a desire that needs to be fueled or fed with something. So when my clients approach me and tell me that, they're hungry in between meals, I have to ask the question, or it begs the question, is this an emotional hunger or a physical hunger? If it's a physical hunger, one, we can survive it. Two, we can address, how hungry you are by the quality and quantity of food that you ate at your last meal. Now, when we have cravings for food, very specific foods, what we are doing is essentially not feeling the feelings. We're using food as a way to bypass, override, buffer, negate, shush, quiet the feelings that may be uncomfortable to us. So The craving is not so much of a desire of food, it's really an avoidance of feeling the feels that may be uncomfortable. Again, these particular urges are not death. It's not meant to be feared. We can endure an urge and override the mind by directing it and soothing it, by asking it, maybe it needs some love and attention. And I would invite you to ask yourself the question of, like, girl, what do you really need? Is it really that cookie or is it really the bag of chips or that glass of wine? What is it that you really need? Do you need a hug? Did you have a hard day? Do you just need a timeout? Do you need a little nap? Do you need some quiet time to just clear your mind? Do you feel like you need to be rewarded because you endured something really challenging and tough today? Let's do that, maybe with something that's supportive and nurturing for ourselves. So I would invite you to ask yourself those questions. First of all, are you hungry? Are you craving something? And then, is it an emotional hunger or a physical hunger? These are all clues into our own biological responses and our emotions, which are also biological responses triggered from our brain. So, this is all something within our control. So, I hope that answers the question or explains the difference between hunger and urges and highlights that you can survive both of these, and it's okay to feel a little uncomfortable. You are not going to die, I promise you.